Hi, my name is Anastasis Janis. I'm a yoga teacher and a breathwork instructor. And in this video, I will answer 5 questions. These questions have come up in the past a lot of the times in workshops, and they are of interest to anyone that believes in the principles that Patrick McKeown teaches in Oxygen Advantage, but also is interested in yoga as well. You can find the questions alongside the time tags in the description below, so you can go directly to the question that you want to hear my opinion about. The questions are why yoga is one of the best ways to start with breathwork, which are the styles of breathing that in my opinion should not be called breathwork, how to breathe during a yoga practice, how to use breath holds during a yoga practice, and finally, I'm giving a suggestion of a book that everybody that is interested in breathing can read, and another one which I usually discourage people from purchasing. In the description below, you will also find a link for a course that I have put together on how to breathe right. The course lasts 14 days, and each day you will be receiving 2 videos. Each video covering a little bit of theory, but most important practice, basically a breathing exercise, which can train the breath and the nervous system, of course, to breathe properly when we are not paying attention. You see, when we are performing a breathing exercise, we can challenge ourselves and breathe in a certain way. But soon after, it is quite easy to forget about how we should be breathing and start having erratic breathing, or obviously not breathe as well as we should in order to keep the mental focus that ultimately we want. In this course that I put together, you will be having a series of exercises that you will be practicing on a daily basis, and will aim to retrain your respiratory and nervous system to improve your breath work. And you can find a link to that in the description below. Let me know in the comments area if there are any questions you would like me to answer in future videos. Enjoy! One of the best ways to improve one's respiratory capacity is to perform certain asanas, certain poses from yoga. If you have attended a breathing workshop of mine, it is likely that I mentioned that, and potentially we even took a step further and we covered some exercises, breathing exercises, while holding certain postures. But as I said, this is a step further. You don't even need to do any breathing exercise when holding asanas, because a lot of asanas affect massively our biomechanics and to a big extent our psychology, the second of the 3 aspects of respiration. And depending on how we breathe, they can definitely, of course, affect the biochemistry, because remember, when we are performing asanas, we are increasing our metabolism. So with that in mind, I think if you are interested in starting out with breath work and you're not sure which breathing exercise to do, until you figure out what you're attracted to and what sort of breath work you want to follow. And by the way, I will speak more in future videos about how I suggest people to navigate through this flood of breathing exercises, a lot of which making claims that are unfounded. I suggest you just practice yoga. Keep your mouth closed, breathe softly, and you will get a lot out of it. If you want to know which poses you can use in order to improve most respiration, there are 3 categories: twist and side flexion, that's number 1. Forward bends and inversions, the 3rd one. But also I would say that back bends should probably be the 4th one. It is just that it is quite complex, in my opinion, to breathe properly in back bends, because usually there are a lot of restrictions in terms of biomechanics. What type of breathing exercise should one practice? The answer, of course, depends on what they want to achieve. Usually the answer to this is, I want to breathe better. But then, do you want to breathe better when there is no available air, such as in apneas that free divers practice? when you're performing a sport, and does this sport involve endurance and or it is more anaerobic, and or you want to improve your breathing when you're not paying attention, when you're not conscious about it. And depending on what is your answer, different breathing techniques might be appropriate. But until one gets educated a little bit more about what he or she can expect from breath work, I think it is important to classify what and discuss, if you want, not classify, what breath work, at least in my opinion, is about. So breath work, in my opinion, is a breathing practice that challenges the respiratory function, and over practicing this breath work for a period of time, we can in a measurable way assess the improvement of respiration. Three words are important in what I just said. There is a challenge that is needed, there is the need for a period of time of practice, and ultimately we need to have a measurable way of having improved that our breathing. For that reason, I think that a lot of the times there are certain styles of breathing that get the label of breath work, while in reality they are not. And these are usually hyperventilation breathing techniques. I will mention a few: holotropic, rebirthing, Wim Hof breathing. And I will very quickly mention how these type of hyperventilation techniques don't fall under the definition which you may want to relate to, or you may not be able to. First of all, they don't usually challenge the breath. Hyperventilating is breathing as much as you can, more than you need, but that's it. You're not pushing necessarily yourself. The second bit is that there is not usually a measurable way that this changes over time. So the reality is that, in my opinion, hyperventilation techniques is the equivalent of going into the gym and picking up some weights, running a little bit around, and because you have run out with weights, you are tired or you feel like you have moved, and then going back home, doing that a few times a week, compared to going to the gym and doing a certain number of exercises for a certain number of sets and repetitions. And as obviously has been happening over many years, people that follow this structure, they improve their strength in the muscles that they recruit. Similar with breath work, when there is someone performs it with such a structure, they can improve their CO2 tolerance, their breath hold tolerance, their breath hold time, and so on. How should one breathe during a yoga practice? And by yoga practice, I mean a physical practice, an asana practice. And this is not a complicated topic, but at the same time, I find that it is oversimplified. So in this video, I will give you my take, which is basically based on the practitioner's experience. Let's start with someone that is starting out. He or she is quite stiff, they have never practiced yoga. So as a result, they are not familiar with some of the names that of the poses or how they can be performed. So in this case, I suggest you don't give an F. Yeah? Don't give an F about how to breathe. If possible, keep your mouth closed, breathe from your nose. But most important is get your head around the pose, because most likely, if you familiarize yourself with the technique, chances are that you will breathe better. And I have to admit that it can be a lot of work and a lot of information to take on, especially in group classes. In privates, it might be a little bit easier to take in, as of like all the limbs and the posture, as well as the breath. Moving on to someone that has been practicing for a couple of months, maybe a few years, and they know what to expect. Maybe they are working on something new. And this is also an important point, because every time we work on a new pose or a new transition, we are again beginners. I'm a very beginner in many things that I'm practicing at the moment, in which case I fall under the first category. But let's say that you are working on things that you're familiar with. In my opinion, we should work towards Ujjayi breath, which is very quiet. So it's not like this donkey breathing that you hear sometimes the experienced practitioners doing. So it is very quiet, it's very soft, it goes at the back of the throat, and it is mostly in nasal breathing. And finally, the third category, someone that has a lot of experience. When you have a lot of experience, you can probably manipulate your breath, so not breathe continuously to challenge or help your asana practice. Now, notice that I said that the breath can challenge or help the asana practice. Depends on what we want to achieve. We want to try both. And there we again fall under the two main categories of breathwork, which is hypercapnic or hypoxic. And I'm going to be speaking more about this in other videos. So then we want to be practicing hypoxia or hypercapnia while we are performing certain asanas to either challenge or help the execution. But this is, let's say, advanced mathematics. If you're starting out now and you're not familiar with how to perform the pose, as one of my teachers say, breathe from your ears. Breathe from any other hole you have available. I hope that helps. That's my take. It goes a long way, and I think it is not to say that someone that starts out like that cannot, at the end of the practice, do some breath work that will also build up over time and make him a better breather. When should you use breath holds during your yoga practice? By the way, I don't think that this is a question that anyone ever asked, because most people in any case think that breath holds are bad. So why even ask when should they use a breath hold? The answer, though, is that breath holds are fantastic and very useful for during a physical yoga practice, and I'm going to give you just 3 examples now. The first one is when you want to recover your breathing. So if you have you're new to yoga and you find yourself hyperventilating, by performing small breath holds, you can build up your carbon dioxide levels into your bloodstream and calm the nervous system down. I know that this is counterintuitive, but it is exactly the same mechanics why in the past those with asthma, when they had an asthma attack, they were advised to breathe into a brown bag. Their tendency would be to hyperventilate, and ultimately what they needed was to increase their carbon dioxide into their blood. So they were asked to breathe their own air in a bag. You can do that much easier through performing some breath holds. Number 2 is when calming down. When calming down, actually, if you perform some breath holds, you can tune into your heartbeat, and it's very calming when you can hear your own heart rate. So if you are during Sivasana, a lot of the times I will in Sivasana ask people to perform some comfortable breath holds, and during them they can feel their heart beat. This drops their heart rate even more and calms the mind. And the last one is to increase abdominal pressure, especially when you're holding your breath at the end of the inhalation. Abdominal pressure increases, and any postures, not that there are many, that require a good abdominal integrity, they will benefit by that. These are just 3 examples where breath holds would be very good idea to perform during a yoga practice. Which book I recommend and which I don't when it comes to breathing? I usually tend to read very few books, and I have done some research prior to purchasing them. So usually the books that I have purchased on breathing tend to be good. There are just a handful of them. Today I will just list one that I recommend and one that I've made the mistake to purchase. So the one that I recommend is by John West, and it is a classic book. By the way, if you ever come across any of his lectures, I think there are quite a few available on YouTube. The guy is genius, and the way that he teaches breathing comes with a lot of enthusiasm and inspiration and clarity, and he's amazing to watch. The book that I usually encourage people not to purchase is the book which is Iyengar's, and it is Light on Breathing, and it's actually a very popular book because yoga is popular, and because for some weird reason Iyengar has got what's the word, the fame that it is the right way, or it has some authority because he was old. I don't know. I mean, I'm not here to criticize the system, but the book is really not very useful. It can work as a list of different breathing techniques. So as a dictionary, it can work, but this I think can be achieved much better by Google.